Alright guys, so now that we made a form using model forms, what we need to do now is we actually need to make a template using HTML so we have somewhere to plug it into. So this is actually pretty important, the way that you name it. Whenever you're using model forms, the default name, actually let me go ahead and right click and make a new HTML file. Again, make sure it's in templates and then your apps directory, which should be music or whatever your app name is. It needs to be the model name underscore form, and the model name is in lowercase. So in this case, I am making a form for creating new albums. So I'm just gonna write album underscore form. Whenever we make a form for making new songs, it's gonna be song underscore form. But again, it's whatever the name of your model is, all in lowercase. Did I say undercase? I don't think I did. If I did, that would be embarrassing. Underscore form. So that's the default file that it's going to look at, and that is why if you're looking through reviews and like, all right, where did I specify the template name? We didn't, because we don't need to. Pretty cool. And actually, let me go ahead and pause my video and make the core Bootstrap shell. All right, so I just made an empty panel. In other words, we're just going to have a white square, and then my form is going to go right in here. But again, it doesn't really matter how you design your page. This is just my personal preference, just to make it easy. So inside here, that's where we start making our form. So the class, again, this is just styling. I'm going to put form horizontal. And then for action, you set this equal to nothing because it's going to be redirected to the same view, and that is where it gets handled behind the scenes. Now the method is going to be equal to post. And right now what we're doing is whenever the user adds a new album, we just say, hey, go ahead and paste in some URL of the album cover. But later on, we're actually going to let them upload a file. So even though we don't need this now, I'm going to set this equal to multi-part form data. And that is just making sure that we can handle whatever files they upload in the form whenever we need it later on. So now I just want to add that token, that cross-site request forgery token, and this is just for common security practices. And let's go ahead and think about this. So whenever Django generates these forms for us, what it does is it gives us some pieces of information. So for each model that we generate it from, it's going to give us a label, which basically says artist, album title, genre, or logo. So it does that. And another thing it does for each one is it gives us that form field. So all of these right here are just going to be inputs. So it's pretty much just going to give us a huge dictionary of labels and inputs. So what we could do is we could go through and in this form handle each one. So, okay, I want to make a form group and I want to put the label to the left and the input to the right. And then I'm going to do it for the other one, make sure it's lined up, and then do it to the right. And then later on, whenever we make another form, have to do it again and again and again and again. But that, again, it breaks the #1 rule of software development: never repeat yourself. So instead, the proper way to handle these is, even though you can do it the long way if you want, it's better to make a generic form template and then just include it. So what I'm going to do right here is, even though we don't have this file created yet, go ahead and write include, and I'll say music form template.html. So all this file is going to be, and you see it's highlighted in yellow, says you didn't make this yet, but we will in just a second. This is just going to be a simple template for how we want our labels and the form fields to be laid out. And I'm just going to lay them out left and right next to each other like a nice grid or table, but you can do whatever you want. All right, so we have all the fields, all the places that the user can type in the information. So the last thing that we need to put in here is a button. What am I clicking on? Take it easy, Bucky. All right, so I'll actually do it this way. So you guys got a little preview of what's to come. So the class is just a form group. And again, this is just all Bootstrap stuff. And all right, now I just want to make a div in here because I need to offset it. So class, small, offset 2. That means I'm not going to take up the first 2 areas because that's generally where the label is going to be. And call small 10. So in Bootstrap, you always need to fill up 10 columns. So that gives me that. And now I'm just gonna add a button in here. So button, right, submit, and it'll be submit button. And now I just need to style it. Button, where are you at, success. All right, so I want to make it green, so that's what I did right there. All right, so now we need to make this file right here. So I'm gonna right click, new HTML file, form template, get rid of this shiz. So again, whenever Django generates these forms for you, they're gonna give you each field one by one. So in this model right here, they're just basically a whole bunch of input areas, but they can also be maybe a drop down, or whenever you let the user upload files, it can be a little button that says choose a file, whatever. So it comes in a list called forms, and we're just gonna name each one field. So for field in form, and let me just end my loop so I don't forget, and for. So now you can loop through these and style them however you want. So for each one in Bootstrap, I'm just gonna put mine in a form group, and I'll just say this. So whenever they have an error, like let's say they didn't fill out the artist name, then I'm gonna want that error message to appear right above the input so they know, what field they're getting an error message on. So I'm actually gonna do this. Copy this. And put my error message right there. Now you can style this however you want. I'm just gonna make it tiny in red. So span class, I'll just say text danger, which makes it red, and also small. And all right, that'll be good enough. All right, so the name of this is whatever you name your object. I name mine field error. So hopefully this will never even display if they never have any errors for some reason. But now I can start making the part that is always going to display. And the first thing is label. In other words, to the left, it's just gonna say artist, and then it's gonna have an input box. Then it's gonna say album title for the label, and then it's gonna have an input area. So let me just make this label right now, and I'll just name it class control label, and also col small 2. So this is going to be 2 columns wide. And now for the actual label is the label tag. So that's the actual text, what essentially the label is. And now for the actual input, this is the easy part. For the class, I'll just write col small 10 and field. So this is going to be the actual input area or drop down or whatever. So there you go. That is looking good. And all right, this is looking good. Now the last thing we need to do is actually add a link to make sure that the user has some way of getting to this form. So since we have this add album button on every single page, that is in our base template. So if you scroll down to right here, add album, this is this button right here. Now we can make a link. And what did we name that? Album add. Arrange this properly. And all right. So the link for this is URL music album add. Everything should be good to go now, and check it out. Just refresh this to make sure our link updates. Now I'm gonna go ahead and click add album, and look at that, mate. So this is what I was talking about with the label right here, and this is the actual field. Now I'm gonna hit submit right now, and notice that it's gonna generate an error, and then this field is required. You see how it's small in red? That is what I was referencing right here. So I needed it to appear above the actual field. So that's why I offset it by 2. And there you go. And of course, you may want to style this so it looks a little bit better. Remove these list item decorators or decorations, whatever they're called. And there you go. So Go ahead and click this again, and let's actually fill this bad boy out. So let me go ahead and just get a picture. What can be my album cover? How about me standing by the lake? So the artist of this album is of course Bucky, and I'll just name it The Lake. Genre rap, of course, and the album logo is that right there, just some URL of an image. I'm gonna hit submit, and boom, look at that. So it redirects you to the details page, and remember, we already plugged in by getting the primary key of this object, and now whenever I look at albums again, I now have a new album. Boom roasted, look at that. And of course, if I want to add another one, just click this, and how awesome is that? So that is the basics of using model forms. It makes it a whole lot easier because we didn't need to generate any of this form HTML. It does simple data validation, and it also took care of adding it to the database all for us. Pretty sweet.